Cineboys to Cinemen, episode 40.
Episode 40.
40.
40 episodes in a year. There we go. Just, be about a year. Yeah.
How many weeks is in a year? 52?
52.
That's
So
not bad, is it?
yeah, we've only missed 12 weeks, which is actually it sounds bad.
That
when
sounds
I say
worse.
like
You say like that. Yeah.
We've not missed 40 weeks, so
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Good way to phrase it. Happy New Year to you all.
Yes.
I hope you had a lovely Christmas as well. Seems weird saying that now. We're sort of like in early January.
Christmas is long gone.
I think it's so strange how society just moves on so quickly from Christmas.
Oh yeah, we were taking the decorations down yesterday. Like, well, that's that then.
It's so bleak, isn't it?
The amount of effort my wife Hannah, I've mentioned her in the past. She like double bowed the decorations onto the tree, so they're really difficult to get off. So
grounds for a divorce.
Yeah, she just
I mean,
I'll say
I've got
it now.
spare room.
Yeah. Well, that might be useful actually.
Good. Well, I'm glad. Yeah. No, it's funny. People when they put decorations up for Christmas, they don't. It's so difficult to conceive the notion that you have to take them down because you're so excited when you put them up.
Yeah, you're like, I'm going to secure these very tightly because this is going to be my feeling forever now, and it obviously is never the case.
No, and we're in January, gloomy January.
Yes,
but no fear, the Cineboys are here.
we're still doing it.
We're still doing it. We're still here with a 2023 retrospective.
Yes.
So it's something we've probably started talking about on the podcast since October, but it's a good opportunity for us to sort of like assess the year, pick out some of our favourites from the year, some of the shit ones, for the lack of a better term, and also to sort of talk about maybe how our opinions might have changed about some of the other films as well, and of course reflect on the industry more broadly because it's been a really interesting year. I think cause for hope in some parts.
Generally, I think so. Yeah,
and also potential sort of seismic changes ahead in terms of like the trajectory of the industry, the trends. With Marvel having a wobbly moment, like it'd be interesting to see how that impacts this year.
I do. Yeah.
So we'll also, I guess, conclude the episode with a sort of discussion about some of the things we're looking forward to this year.
Yeah, definitely.
Shall we do it?
Let's go.
Questing the cinematic void.
Right then, 2023, a year in which the inconceivable happened.
Yes.
I'm not saying this with like a sort of sense of sadness. I'm just saying that for a long time it seemed impossible to imagine the idea that Marvel would ever have a moment where things would start to look very choppy for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's really been the case for them this year, hasn't it? I mean, in the latter stages, I guess, more so.
Part of me feels quite smug about it as well because I was predicting this for years beforehand. I was like, there's no way people are going to carry on wanting to watch these films.
Yeah.
And it's finally happened, and I feel weirdly quite good about it. I don't feel good about it in the sense that obviously I don't want people's careers to like end and for people to lose their jobs and stuff, but
it's not what you were saying out of the podcast.
Well, officially, the line is
my official line, party line.
No, it's just funny because I got sick of them quite a long time ago.
You were, your tolerance for them was not as strong as a lot of other people's I knew.
Yeah, like,
and I don't mean that as a criticism.
No, I just. I found even the ones that were getting critical praise to be sort of quite difficult to watch and cookie cutter and again, I'm not saying that like I have the kind of sixth sense for these things, but I was confused as to why people were heaping so much praise on them. And it's finally happened.
The bubbles burst.
Yeah, like you got the Marvels, you got Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, neither of which have done very well. Morbius was 2022, wasn't it? So that's Sony. So
right, lingers on though, lingers within.
Yeah. But there's been other Marvel films this year that haven't done brilliantly.
Yeah, TV hasn't. I think there's been a real oversaturation.
Yeah. Secret
I think
Invasion.
That's something they're starting to acknowledge.
Yep.
I think particularly with Ant-Man, Quantumania, and Marvels, there's a clear sense that there's a real lack of.
Just a lack of interest, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think it stems from the fact they just don't have a compelling roster of characters moving forward.
No.
Or that the legacy of the past cluster of heroes was so well entrenched in the sort of public consciousness that the idea of anyone else taking that mantle is sort of almost inconceivable. I mean,
Yeah.
there was some rumours floating around they were going to try and bring some of them back. It just smacks of desperation, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But, no, I agree with you. I think it's high time things change up a little bit. I wasn't overtly critical for a sort of long time. I just sort of accepted them as part of the landscape.
Yeah.
I think it was this sort of lingering feelings of affection towards comic books as a medium, more broadly, as someone that used to be quite into them. But over the last couple of years, I've definitely seen an increase in fatigue, a frustration with how it has dominated the industry so much so that it's become increasingly difficult for sort of smaller voices and smaller films to have their slice of the pie, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it is high time that things change up. Do I think they're going to stop? No. I think they've probably got a lot more juice in the tank before people really properly sack them off. But I do think it's going to be interesting to see how they move forward and how they change things, because a lot of other big companies around them that have tried to ape that sort of multi-linked overarching narrative across mediums have largely all failed, with the exception of maybe Star Wars, but even then they've not really had considerable success in their films.
It was diminishing returns, completely. Like I know
Disney owns both of them anyway.
They do, yeah. Like the Force Awakens was one of the highest grossing films of all time. Last Jedi was very financially successful. It divided quite a lot of people. I quite like that film.
It's my favourite of the three.
Yeah. And then Rise of Skywalker didn't make much. I mean, it did make a profit, but it wasn't. It was like half of what Force Awakens made, and everyone hated it.
Yeah,
because it's shit. That's all I have to say about Rise of Skywalker. But no, I'm quite interested to see how. Just how they approach things. Like, obviously, you've got the whole sort of thing with Jonathan Majors as well, that being like a sort of
they've sacked him, haven't they?
They have officially sacked him now. So like, they'll recast Kang, or they'll get a new villain in, and it will be like a kind of substitute for what presumably screenplays were getting written already. And I kind of hope it still doesn't work. But I don't know. Maybe they'll rejuvenate it in a way that I find refreshing. So
I think it's the nature of the way they go about it, isn't it? I think it's the way, again, we've said this a lot, but that sort of that constantly moving narrative that's always got an eye on future projects, future characters, and there's always this sort of sense that a lot of these decisions are made in a big marketing room, and that really impacts the overall enjoyment of the film. I mean, we accept that blockbuster cinema has to exist, and we accept that there can be some real bangers that come out of that industry, that side of the industry. But I just think the way they've gone about it, and the way in which it exudes such dominance is, it's hard not to sort of greet it with a sense of fatigue these days. So I'm up for a change.
Me too. Yeah. Sorry, Marvel, you've had your time in the sun.
Well, they've had like 20.
It has been a really long time.
And they've made billions. It's like I don't really have any sympathy for them, to be perfectly honest. And like the people that love those films and the sort of fandom and culture that obsesses over them and will set fire to your house if you don't like them. Well, frankly, you've got fucking loads of films and TV shows to watch over and over again should you want to. So, my sympathy for you isn't particularly high.
No, there's a few people on Facebook, naming no names, obviously, that I'm just like, oh really? Like, pack it in. Like, seriously, I don't understand. Like, they were defending the Marvels. I was like, are you sure? Are you? I mean, I know it's meant to be all right, and maybe I get that it's their opinion, and they might have gone to the cinema at a really good time because they have like always grown up watching the comic books. But I'm just like, I'm getting. It's every day as well. It's like another thing about Marvel that gets shared. I'm just like, all right. It seems like a crusade for them now.
I mean, that does tend to happen, doesn't it? I guess with the Marvels and Brie Larson and Captain Marvel, there's always that sort of bizarre sort of contingent of society that seems to just hate films that seem to be even remotely progressive. So I think from that perspective, I can understand sticking up for it. But of course. But as a film, it's not very good. So, and it just, to me, spells the beginning of the end.
I think so.
Quantumania did that as well, because that was shite.
Yeah, that hasn't got any better in my head.
No.
Since,
and we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yes,
as Ben's favourite film of the year.
Yeah.
I guess the only other phenomena really major to talk about is Barbenheimer. I mean, that was something that really, obviously, surprised everybody, I think.
Yeah, it was around the same time as when the strikes were really like at their peak.
Yeah.
Industry disrupting kind of situation going on, and I think both of them managed to get their premieres, but they weren't able to do any promotion
or press,
and so I don't know whether the landscape was like, heavily desaturated with actors talking about films that were out, and people on the internet rallied and kind of did their own promotion for it, and it happened to be, it was the two films that were so much different from each other coming out in the same weekend. Usually that's a tool. It's almost like a competitive thing, isn't it? And I guess at a time when people weren't getting what they wanted in terms of like the interviews, they were like, well, we got to have something exciting about all this, and it ended up both films became really, really successful.
I think you're right. It's interesting. I think didn't really consider, obviously, with the strikes and that would obviously impact the promotional run for these films.
Certainly, it's not really it's a generational thing, and I think I'm of the generation that doesn't really ingest that kind of media a lot. But short form content is quite important to promoting a film these days. If there was a lack of that going on, people would just start generating their own.
And it was just so lovely. I mean, just for someone that loves movies and wants this industry to continue to thrive as best as it can, it was so lovely to see just an enthusiasm for the cinema. It's weird. Like I was reminded of that when I went to see Boy and the Heron last week. In Avonmead, and the screen was packed.
Really? Oh man!
And it might have something to do with the fact that there's only one showcase left now. In Bristol, but it was rammed, and it just made me think, fuck, this is good for like a Studio Ghibli film as well. Like, I don't know, like, and that's what it reminded me of sort of that experience with Barbie, and just the way in which it sort of really tapped into something, and people not only came to the cinema en masse, but they sort of made like an event of it, and they dressed up,
and unironically as well.
There was no joke to it. It was like a real sort of collective celebration of something of the. Even if you didn't enjoy the movie, it's nice to see that enthusiasm for a movie, particularly for a medium that has had a fair few knockout punches come its way and managed to dodge them. But So I just think it was really a really lovely thing. It was funny to be paired with something that was so different in Oppenheimer. Certainly sort of tonally and obviously in terms of subject matter.
Completely.
Which again is something I want to talk about. I want to talk about both of those films
later
on.
Okay.
I think you do as well, don't you? In terms of that sort of how the landscape of discourse around those films has sort of shifted ever so slightly. And,
I would like to talk about hypocrisy as well. And I think that would be a big theme when we do discuss that.
I mean, both films are still films I would look back on and say I liked. But my view of them has been tempered somewhat.
Okay.
But we'll talk about that a bit later on.
Yes.
Shall we talk about some of our favourites of the year? I think it's good to start off positive before we start shitting on things.
Yeah.
So me and Ben have picked the nice round number of 8.
Yes.
8 films. In no particular order for me. Are they in order for you?
I did 3, which I've kind of written a bit more about, so I'll probably elaborate on those a bit more, and then there'll be some honourable mentions which will make up the 8.
Nice.
A
couple of films for me I've literally seen the last couple of weeks. The sort of, because December there's that sort of mad flurry of releases, and obviously with it being the festive period, and obviously like you're busy, you don't have time to podcast, but I thought it'd be quite nice to squeeze some of them in as well, just to sort of touch on them. As you know, we usually do a whole episode on each film. So for the sake of brevity, we're going to try and rattle through them as quickly as possible. But it was nice. I was quite pleased to catch a few, and they've slipped into my 8 films.
Oh, lovely,
which is good. If anything, though, the list has made me think, God, I definitely need to go to the cinema more. I mean, we both had a busy year with lots of other stuff going on in the background, so it's fair enough.
Yeah.
But I think it would be good to.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. The more the merrier with the cinema.
Yeah.
for me. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The best. The best. Right, okay. Shall I go first or should
Go on, mate. You crack on.
I imagine there'll be some crossover.
There will be, yeah.
Cool.
I'll mention it if there is.
Okay, so the first one for me is Past Lives,
Okay, yeah.
a film that we saw, I saw all the way back in September, and we did an episode about. But for me, it was a film that just sort of left a real lasting emotional impact on me, which has not necessarily been a rarity this year because there's been a few films that have done that, but in terms of the subject matter, in a very oversaturated market in terms of the subject matter, it did a really good job of it.
Yeah. That's also on my list as well. So yeah, there's a bit of crossover there.
Yeah,
you're right. It stayed with me as well. It was more consistent than I thought. Return to Seoul had a lot of similar themes. Another film we covered, but this was more kind of consistent in terms of picking sort of one simple theme and really running with it. No villains, only victims of circumstance. I always thought that was quite nice.
Yeah,
quite unusual for a sort of narrative fiction.
It's certainly something that deals with things like love and romance. You know, I think we said this in the episode, but you know, the rom-com does have a tendency to villainize somebody.
It's always
sort of
one
make
bloke.
the behaviour more justifiable.
Yeah,
like leaving him or something like that. You know what I mean? Or
exactly.
I'm getting married to this bloke. I don't really like him, but I'm going to leave him, and everyone wants me to leave him. No one thinks what that guy's like. Life is like afterwards. You know?
No, yeah.
I agree. I really agree. I just, it was just a sort of a quietly agonising ode to the relationships that are never allowed to grow. You know? And it was just the way in which those relationships can be impacted by decisions we make or the decisions that are made for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
A really, really wonderful movie. A debut. I very much look forward to what Celine Song's got next.
Yes, me too. Yeah.
Good. Go on then, Ben.
I want to mention again Annie's Main.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, wow. I completely forgot about that.
Man, yeah.
Sorry, Mark.
Sorry, Mark. Yeah. It just really stayed with me over the course of this year because we went to see it quite early on last year. I think it might have been in January, actually. Technically, it's a 2022 film, but it didn't come out in the United. It was 2022 at Cannes, and then it came out in 2023 in sort of cinemas. So I think that's justifiably, you know.
There's a few films that are gonna be that, but in England, we get them late. So as far as I'm concerned, it's 2023.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So just in terms of atmosphere, you know, and I actually criticised the sound design before. I sort of want to take that back now because it is. I think it really drilled into my skull, and the sound design was largely the reason why. And all done by Mark Jenkins himself as well. It's all very kind of like not a one-man band, but he's the sort of creative driving force behind a lot of that.
Oh, I would certainly agree with that. He does the music as well, doesn't he?
He does, yeah, and the cinematography, and like the film processing as well as all him. I think that's just quite delightful. Yeah.
Sorry, Ben.
No.
Correcting myself. Carry on.
No, you're all good, man. Yeah. I just think it's like, you know, it's like staring at one of Goya's black paintings for 90 minutes straight with Aphex Twin's selected ambient works playing in the background. And to me, I mean, that's probably not everyone's cup of tea, but to me, that's like a sort of a delightful way to spend my time.
Yeah.
Delightful is an odd word to use, but it's because it's quite grueling in places and very sort of witchy and very like harrowing. But I love that, and I think it's quite hard to get that tone right, and it really did.
Agreed. Yeah,
stayed with me. Only 90 minutes, as I say. Rivals Kill List or A Field in England is one of my favourite examples of like more morbidly folk horror film. I think. It's up there with those. So.
Oh, wow, high praise indeed.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah, no, a very good movie. I think you know it definitely didn't have the impact that Bait had. I think people were expecting another Bait. I think we said that, didn't we?
Yeah.
Narratively, this film's a lot less concerned with structure.
Yeah,
it's more about enveloping you in a sort of in a mood.
Yeah.
And I think as an exercise in that, it works.
Definitely,
and it's a really fantastic follow-on from Bait, and a really worthy addition to his filmography. Again, someone I really look forward to.
Oh yeah, it'd be great
seeing what they do next.
Yeah, I did check earlier today. I haven't got anything in the pipeline confirmed.
Okay,
but I imagine it'll be another sort of semi-self-made, funded by sort of film for kind of like 16mm delight. So yeah.
I always wonder if not always, but whenever I think about him, and I wonder if he'll ever do a film outside of Cornwall and how that would impact the sort of the processes that he undertakes.
Yeah,
'cause he seems so comfortable, within the mythology of Cornwall, or not just the mythology and history, but the sort of current strife that it is sort of going through. I'd be interested to know if he's going to take himself out of that sort of comfort zone and maybe even go somewhere else, like to another country. Or, that'd be really interesting to see.
I kind of hope he does, but
I think every filmmaker needs to do that once.
Yeah, definitely.
Not that I'm telling him what to do. He's fucking
come on, Mark.
Come on, mate. But God, I completely forgot about that.
And he's me.
Worthy addition. I'm going to mention. So I thought I'd use this as an opportunity to talk about a few films we haven't mentioned before.
Yes, okay.
Because as I said, either we pick a film and then there'll be a few other films that we miss, or would it be in the Christmas period? Obviously, it's been very difficult to get down and record an episode. So there's been a few that have slipped in there. This is not one of those. This was in November. I saw this, and it was How to Have Sex.
Okay,
from, Molly Manning Walker. It's a film about 3 girls that, upon finishing their GCSE results, go on holiday. I think to Greece.
Okay, yeah.
And it's sort of partly this sort of wonderful ode, this sort of coming of age experience of sort of finding yourself. And being able to lose yourself at right before the dawn of all these sort of serious decisions that you have to make.
Yeah.
The rest of the film, however, is a really sort of powerful exploration of sort of ideas around consent.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And sexual assault.
Okay.
And it's a film that really, again, talking about films that sort of linger with you, this was one that really did.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I think it really has it did a really good job of sort of stimulating conversations around these subjects.
Yeah. I've not actually watched it. It's on Mubi, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It went on not too long ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that because I nearly did see that, and for some reason I just it wasn't grabbing me at the time, but I will give that one a go actually.
It's really hard. Yeah, it's really hard to sort of like go through a film that is so impactful and powerful with its message in such a short period of time. But it's sort of a film that really sort of captures both of those things really well.
Yeah,
but it also captures a sort of like the nightmarish quality of Brits Abroad holiday really well.
Yeah.
Because that's something that's never really ever appealed to me, about just going to like a hot place surrounded by English people, just drinking and sort of
going on slot machines and stuff.
Yeah. It's just never been my thing. It's just but the film really captures that. But it sort of, what I think is one of the great achievements of the film is how the director Molly Manning Walker sort of finds pockets of silence among this sort of never-ending mass of writhing bodies.
Okay.
And it's about these 3 girls, but it's really about one girl, really.
Yeah.
And she is someone of which that isn't very experienced in the realms of, with sex or anything like that.
Yeah.
And she's almost isolated by that.
I imagine that's quite a common feeling with girls of that age.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's that inexperience that makes her sort of a victim to basic sexual assault. She's sexually assaulted by an older man. He's a young man, but older than her. I think they lie and say that they're 18. I think he's in his early 20s.
Right, yeah.
And it sort of just really gets into these ideas about how we view sex and consent and how poorly equipped everyone is. That's not to say by any stretch of the imagination that it's her fault.
Yeah,
I think, I think the sort of way in which we talk about it, and it is really, I think it would be a really, really important film to show to young men, particularly.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. About how they, it's almost like an expectation, and the idea. Another part of the reason I think the sort of British holiday is such a nightmare is that it's like a hyper real extension of that sort of masculine expectations, how women should present themselves, and how sex is viewed, and it almost always seems to serve them, and women are sort of just chasing that. Even the other 2 characters who are somewhat slightly more experienced, their whole maybe just one actually, she is very much the way she talks about it and thinks about it, it's not necessarily healthy either. It's not an easy watch.
I can imagine it is, tough,
but it's a really, I think, a really important movie, one of the more important films of the year.
Yeah.
But it also is quite funny. There were parts and quite sweet in a way. It sort of reminded me of Aftersun.
I was just saying, there's some narrative parallels here.
And it's Mubi.
Brits Abroad, right?
Yeah,
of course.
So I think it's not all difficult. But when it is, it asks a lot of questions about the way we think about sex and consent, and how there is still so much work to do, particularly with young people.
Yeah, definitely.
Mostly young men. But yeah, great film. Definitely worth a go. Go on then, Ben.
Oh, yeah. So from that, we'll sort of slip nicely into a very similarly themed film, John Wick Chapter 4. I had a great time at the cinema with this one. I thought, despite it's very long, it's nearly 3 hours. Maybe it's something to do with the fact that I'd just moved house and it was a nightmarish sort of house buying process, and my life had finally calmed down, and it was the first sort of lone cinema outing I had.
I love a lone cinema outing.
Oh, I do think there's something special about it, especially when a film's been out for a long time and it's like quite quiet. I think when there's a big audience and you're with someone, it's great. But when you're on your own, it can be quite isolating. Because you look at it and there's loads of couples walking in, and you're like, oh Jesus.
Yeah.
But this was late on in its sort of release, and I just think it is more of the same, but it's done. It takes itself seriously, which I thought was very commendable. It's quite difficult for action films of this. Of today to do that. Bill Skarsgård was great. I keep thinking about his performance in that film and just how over the top and hilarious it was, but not in a way that detracts from the seriousness that I was talking about just now. I know there's a TV show now which apparently isn't that good, but I think for a franchise to end so confidently, it does provide a sort of definitive ending to that franchise. I think I don't really care what they do next. I thought it was a really great ending. And there's a great Sacre-Cœur stairs gag as well, which is great.
Yeah, sort of reminiscent of the great silent comedies of old.
Yeah. And somehow again,
masterfully done.
Yeah, and it still doesn't detract from the seriousness.
No,
it's
but
sort
that
of
creates its own sense of humour.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Good film.
Yeah, great. I mean, we heaped a lot of praise on it, I think, when we discussed it. But
we talked about it in the context of sort of Eastern action cinema.
It's just a real great example of how great Western action films can be if we just acknowledge some of the things that they do in the East, and the legacy of Eastern action cinema, and how indebted we are to that. And I think that the John Wick franchise is a great example of a film that shows that in abundance.
Definitely.
Yeah, it was long.
It's fucking long.
Yeah,
but it's sort of was never boring.
No,
it was sort of you can kind of feel your muscles starting to go to sleep, but like you're still kind of pepped, and you start sort of squirming. And again, if the cinema's quiet, put your feet up, and you tend to. I tend to be all right. Like I was quite lucky with Killers of the Flower Moon because that happened. There was no one sat in front of me, so I was like, feet are going up. But it is long, but I thought it was great.
John Wick 2 is shorter, and that's definitely got more. It's definitely more boring.
Yeah,
there's definitely quite a lot of filler in there, a lot of unnecessary globetrotting, from what I can remember.
Yeah, a lot of establishing shots of European cities. That go on for a long time.
Isn't there like a fight scene in like the Middle East?
Yeah, that's right.
Is that in 2?
I think so. Yeah, horses.
Or maybe 3. Is that 3? Oh, who cares? Anyway, one of those.
Parabellum.
Yeah. I mean, the point we're making is that despite the longer running time, 4 manages to not be as boring as its predecessors. Yeah, good. I'm going to stay roughly in the in the same genre.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning.
Oh, good. Yeah, man. Yeah.
I've tried to sort of like pick a broad range of films, just because I think it's just a good exercise.
Yeah.
And I just think it's just like John Wick is. It's just a real sort of striking reminder of how great action cinema is, and how cathartic and enjoyable, and how sort of old school Hollywood it is, and
Yeah.
how there is still life in old school Hollywood.
Yeah.
It's different from John Wick in the sense that John Wick is very more a lot more martial arts focused,
Hand to hand. Less
whereas
elaborate,
Mission Impossible is a lot more spectacle, which again is very much Hollywood's sort of remake. Not that a lot of fantastic East Asian action films that are massive in scope too, but I think, say what you will about Tom Cruise as an actor and as a performer and as someone that is seemingly hell-bent on keeping that old school Hollywood feeling alive, not just in the sort of presentation of himself as a character and indeed the franchise as a whole, but the attitude towards special effects and narrative. I just think it worked really well. Not my favourite. I still think Fallout is my favourite, but I just thought it was nice to mention it.
I think it was great. I just had a really good time at the cinema. Did we see it together? I think.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. I really like 3. I think 3 might still be up there as like one of my favourites personally, maybe for nostalgic reasons only. But although I might have ranked it differently in the podcast that we did about it. I thought it was really wicked. There's some like issues I had with the fact that people kept saying there was no CGI in it, and there obviously was.
Yeah.
But it didn't detract from the fact that the plot was quite engaging. Like the set pieces were fantastic. Not just the set piece that everyone saw that was in the trailer. There was a couple of other really great ones as well, involving a steam train, which I thought was really quite funny. The way they kind of employed archaic technology in the second half of that film, which is quite funny and tongue-in-cheek about the AI adversary in the film. Agreed. Great pick.
I just think that again, like given the sort of technical innovations that are very much at the doorstep of the medium and indeed our broader lives, it's quite a bold move to sort of stick the finger up to that really, and stay sort of true to the tried and tested techniques, and I think there's definite room for that. The sort of cautionary tale about the sort of use of that technology is no better seen if you think about CGI and the state of modern Hollywood and how that has really impacted audiences' viewing habits in terms of focus and be able to sort of interrogate slightly more complex ideas. That's a really wanky and twatty thing to say, but I think CGI has impacted that hugely, particularly in the mainstream landscape. I don't think films like Joker would have had half as much praise had it not come out in a period of time where the vast majority of blockbuster films are sort of like CGI heavy,
mainly animated.
Films. I don't know. Just a thought, but I agree.
Happy days.
I agree with myself.
I agree with my own choices.
Reassuring.
So I've got one here that we didn't do a podcast on, which I quite liked. It was a horror film that just sort of, I'd heard good things, and it didn't disappoint. Like my expectations were sort of met. Really, Talk to Me.
Okay. Yes, I have seen Talk to Me.
I just thought it was a very kind of hyper violent in places, like really quite nasty to like, but it kind of employs that sort of nastiness without being an overtly sort of torture porn. Fair. And also the supernatural element of it is handled quite well. I thought quite similar to It Follows, just in the way it's presented as kind of like
parallels.
It kept me guessing as well, which is a rarity with a lot of horror films, like sort of like The Nun 2 or something. I pretty much know what that's going to be about already. I don't have an awful lot more to say about it really, other than it was just sort of a nice surprise.
I personally wasn't as taken with it. I sort of felt that it straddled an awkward line between like a genuinely great A24 horror and one of those sort of possession films. I couldn't quite decide which side it fell in more into. But I did enjoy it. I didn't dislike it. As I said, I thought the way the concept is with the hand, I thought that was quite cool. And the violence. There seems to be a real obsession with like young people's heads being slammed into tables. That seems like to be like A24's like horror shtick.
Yeah.
But fair enough.
Yeah, no, I didn't think about that actually. But you're right. Maybe there's just some kind of like revolutionary new technology that allows 12-year-olds to just smack their head on the edge of glass tables. And
I love the idea. It's just a guy in a fucking full morph suit who hates kids, just smashing kids' heads.
Yeah.
But I got one take here. Don't kill him, for Christ's sake.
Please, not again.
Another pick for me, Ferrari. Another film we haven't had a chance to do a podcast about. Which is a shame,
I haven't seen it. No.
Because, again, I was only lucky enough to see this a week or so ago. I got given a cinema voucher for Christmas.
Ooh.
Thank you, Libby.
Thanks, Libby.
And I used it pretty much immediately and to go and see this.
Okay.
And I sort of went in not really expecting a lot because I'm not that into cars.
Yeah.
At all, and I know very little about Ferrari or the sort of history that surrounds him. I was aware that obviously he was a very popular figure in a certain period, obviously a pioneering figure in his field.
Yeah.
But I had very little knowledge about that. I'd seen Ford versus Ferrari and quite enjoyed that. And because it's just a very sort of straight-laced blockbuster affair.
James Mangold.
Yeah. We were saying actually to our beloved Cinderboy Dan, who hopefully will get on at some point soon.
Yeah, he mentioned
he
did mention to come
on. We were saying that Mangold is such a steady pair of hands and that there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, so that was the only sort of car film I'd seen and really liked, or quite liked. But of course, I forgot how fucking good Michael Mann is. I mean, he's just an institution and one of the greats of Hollywood. And thinking about it afterwards, after I came out, I was like, that was fucking great.
Yeah.
I was like, why did I even sort of doubt him at all?
Yeah.
Even if the subject matter isn't my wheelhouse, which is the case with so many films. So I don't know. But a really brilliant film. Man sort of continuing his cinematic obsession with tortured men, ebbing out the last remaining years of their chosen craft.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Sort of lonely men married to archaic principles and having like a warped sense of morality that sort of alienates them from everyone else.
Oh, right. Okay.
Driver, it's the second time he's played an Italian. I know House of Gucci wasn't received that well.
Yeah, a lot of the way that sort of the Italian accents were handled.
Yeah, the mannerisms and the behaviour.
Some actors more than others was criticised, but I think Driver has come out and said like about that fact. He's like, it doesn't matter. He's literally I don't care.
I think he's excellent here. Obviously, your mileage may vary with the accent, but for me, that's not something that really pulls me out of films that much. Particularly a film like this, I expect that there's probably going to be some inconsistencies on the basis he's not Italian.
Yeah.
The only sort of offender here is Shailene. Is it Shailene?
Shailene Woodley.
Yeah, her accent's pretty poor. That's not great.
I like her in some certain things.
Great actress, but here not good, not so good. And again, she doesn't get a lot to do. Her character is very sort of female,
right?
Sort of side character.
It's hard not to caricature the accent, I think. It's a hard one to get right. So if one actor manages it, if Driver manages it, that's good enough for me.
Yes.
Michael Mann. Apparently Black Hat has got sort of a weird... I haven't actually seen it, but his film Black Hat, which came out in like 2015, I think. Yeah, and nobody watched it. Like, sort of experienced a bit of a revival.
Yeah. I had seen it, but I don't really remember it, and I remember being really marred by everyone else being negative about it.
Yeah, okay.
So I actually bought it after coming out of the cinema on eBay.
Oh, really?
So we'll have to watch it together because I think it's due. I think a lot of even his lesser work gets reevaluated with a sort of like more, with a bit more sort of reverence further down the line. But no, this is great, really brilliant film. Stunningly shot. The race sequences when they come are really good. The sound design is the real champion, as you'd expect for a Michael Mann film.
Yeah.
The way he sort of juxtaposes the sleekness of these beautiful cars. I'm not that into cars, but it's hard not to sort of be enamoured with the sort of way in which these cars are built. He juxtaposes that sort of smooth shininess with the sort of engines within, and it's almost like these sort of shuddering, roaring engines that disturb quite a lot. The more quiet moments in the film. There's quite a lot of silence in the film.
Okay, yeah.
And sort of almost remind him and everyone else of the inevitable. That death is something that comes to those who race, but it also comes to everyone in the end, and it's a real sort of theme of the film. It was actually quite a sort of harrowing experience. And some of the effects, there's a death sequence in the film which is really quite shocking. Again, it's a shame not to sort of spend an hour talking about it, but really worth it, and just a lesson to never write off Michael Mann. I don't know why I did it. Sorry, Mike.
Mate, don't worry about it. That's from Mike. He's just messaged me.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, cheers.
Even though this episode isn't live. Cool. I don't know what else to pick, because I've got a few here which I've written down, but I don't know whether I should mention them. I'm gonna go a bit left field here.
Go on.
And it's a film I don't think we've discussed even together off mic.
Oh right. Okay.
I went to see A Haunting in Venice with Hannah, expecting to hate it because I hated Death on the Nile, and I'm quite hesitant to put this in my top 8, but I'm gonna anyway because I had a real blast with it. Thought it was really good.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Have you seen it?
No, I remember thinking that I've seen one of the other ones and I thought it was pretty poo.
Yeah.
But I'd sort of written off ever sort of venturing into that version of the world again.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking the trailer obviously lent a lot more into that sort of into horror.
Yes. Yeah.
And thinking that was quite an interesting way to take something. I mean, obviously the critical response has been pretty lukewarm with the previous 2 films, so why not go a bit more left field with it?
That's exactly what they've done.
Okay.
It's much better. It's much better than the previous 2. It's still not perfect. I mean, it's still Kenneth Branagh doing that weird Poirot. It's almost like an impression of him as opposed to him acting. But
it's quite hokey, isn't it?
Yeah, big time. Yeah, he hams it up to but in this one it works a bit more to his favour. It's a lot more location filming. Like they clearly, took the time out to actually travel to Venice, and although I think there is a set that's utilised for the interiors, the exteriors, like it's just, it's a beautiful looking city. It's a lesser known story, I think. So I wasn't, because I knew about I'd seen the original Ustinov Death on the Nile, so I knew how it ended anyway. Murder on the Orient Express, I think I had an inkling.
Because I had seen, that's the one I'd seen.
Yeah,
and I've also seen the Sidney Lumet one before.
Yes, of course, yeah. So you know how they're going to pan out, but I didn't with this one, and it was sort of surprising. Kept me guessing. Just a good time.
Oh, well, nice.
I might have just been in the right mood for it, but I thought it was worth mentioning because I was not expecting to like it at all.
Well, there we go.
And I was pleasantly surprised, so there we go. Why not?
Why not? Throw in a pleasant surprise.
Yes.
That could be a pleasant surprise of the year.
The only one. There won't be any more. Throughout the entirety of 2024, there's no more surprises coming from me.
No more. I went for Anatomy of a Fall.
Okay, I've heard a lot about this. Yeah.
Again, another film I managed to squeeze in on the build-up to Christmas. I just spent most of my time hiding in the cinema, away from all the shopping and stuff.
Yeah.
A really sort of solid murder mystery courtroom drama that interrogates the contrasting methods of prosecution and the defence in their pursuit of truth. Basically, it's about 2 authors who are married, who live with their son who is blind out in the Alps.
Okay.
And one day after the woman, played by Sandra Huller, who's excellent, has to cancel an interview with a literature student because her husband is playing music really loud.
Oh, right, okay.
Basically, the husband dies.
Okay.
And he's found dead in the snow outside the house.
Ooh, okay.
And the film basically unpacks how the court, both the prosecution and the defence, try and free her of any sort of culpability, or send her to prison for murder, because the manner of his death is suspicious enough to suggest that there's a good chance that he could have met a sort of bitter end, or he could have been suicide, and that's sort of the 2 angles with which the film takes.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And it's the way in which both sides of the court and the pursuit of justice dredge up their life.
Right.
And, basically, air it all out.
Yeah.
It makes it really difficult to truthfully get to the bottom of it yourself and side with one or the other, which I think is a real strength of the film, because on the one hand, you think, fuck it, the prosecution are being really sort of, they're really touching a nerve here. And they're sort of interrogating parts of this relationship that obviously weren't great. But as someone that's in a relationship, as I'm sure many people would agree, there's not many people in life who see an uglier side to you than your partner on occasion.
Of course.
And the idea of that being aired out on national television is something that would be mortifying for everyone, I assume.
Jesus.
But in the pursuit of justice, it's free reign, and then people can view that and judge it and liberate themselves from the sort of knowledge that they're just as capable of behaving that way,
Oh, wow.
So, and Huller herself is so good because you don't quite write her off as a murderer either.
Okay.
So I'm not going to sort of spoil it too much, but although I probably have, but it's just a real great exercise in sort of building tension through, just through those elements.
Oh wow, okay, yeah. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen a courtroom drama.
Yeah, they tend to really, focus on one side or the other.
Oh, completely. Yeah.
And to have a film that sort of has a real overview of everything and leaves you with a sort of real bitter taste in your mouth about the pursuit of justice, but also leaves you uneasy about her as well.
Yeah.
Really well done. And
nice.
the sort of omnipresent nature of everyone else's opinions around it. It's seldom addressed in the film, but it feels really heavy. And it's almost like characterized. And I think it's that in this sort of Netflix generation where, we're so sort of, everyone's really into murder documentaries and all this sort of thing and theorizing about people.
Yeah.
We
amateur sleuthing.
We almost forget that there are people involved and, there is potential for real damage. If not done properly, and and perhaps with more privacy in mind. I don't know. I don't know what the right stance is. I don't work in those fields, but it's a really interesting sort of interrogation of those ideas anyway, and really worth it. It's quite long, but it keeps you engaged. The only criticism I have of it, really, is the ending's a bit flat.
Okay.
And I know you're gonna laugh when I say this because it's something I'm quite hot on. Is the way writers write dialogue for kids.
I know you.
Sometimes the boy in the film, brilliant, in terms of performance, but some of the dialogue just seems, I don't know, he seems to have a little bit too much knowledge about the human condition and the sort of nuances of the justice system for an 8-year-old boy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe French kids are just smarter than English kids are, but at that age, but. Yeah, they're only minor niggles in what is otherwise a really excellent film.
It's odd that of the three people living in the Alps, one of them falling off a presumably like quite high sheer drop, it wasn't the one that was blind.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Having not seen the film, that might be quite an insensitive thing to say. We'll find out.
You'll find out. You watch film, then we'll come back to our listeners. Go on then. I'm interested to hear what you've got next.
Yes. All right. I'm gonna say One Fine Morning.
Yeah.
Another one that just stayed with me. I won't say too much about it because it's a very simple. I think this is actually absolutely its strength, but it's just a very simple kind of mediation on taking on the burden of responsibility of sort of parents who are getting like ever more sort of elderly, really, and what that could do to you and what that can do to your sort of your own relationships, and just how you can navigate that and how you can find a sort of bit of a ray of hope in everything. I just thought it was quite a nice, easy, breezy watch considering its subject matter, really.
Yeah, I mean, Mia Hansen-Løve is so good for sort of threading philosophical depth and complexity and real raw emotion into something that is into the everyday. And I think that's a real strong point throughout all of her work. I went on a bit of a binge of hers because Mubi had quite a lot of her films on after, to sort of, I guess, to sort of in correlation with the release of One Fine Morning. Again, a 2022 release, but obviously being in England, we got it quite a bit later.
Yeah, we watched it, last year.
But no, I think it's a really lovely film, and I'm actually annoyed that I didn't put that in mine. But there we go. No, it's a sort of very powerful ode to the many faces of vulnerability.
Yeah.
The ones that we obscure and the ones that we sort of bear in times of just, wanting to be loved.
Yeah.
especially when we're living through something as difficult as having a family member, or I think it's her father, isn't it, who's going through dementia. Yeah. And Lea Seydoux superb.
Yeah, she's
never not superb. Really.
Always just brilliant in anything she's in. We've gone. What's your next peak?
So the last two are two films that came out in December. It's freshies.
Nice.
One I watched last night. I'm going to go with it. Priscilla.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
I am always a bit guarded about how much I'm prepared to enjoy Sofia Coppola films, because I think there is in sort of more independent film circles, there's a real obsession to obsess over aesthetic.
Yeah.
I think I found that quite a lot at university. Films, studying film, it was very much
cinematography almost.
Yeah. There were people that
fawned over.
That was king, right, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Which obviously to me, it's still an incredibly important part of the filmmaking process. But it's it isn't the most important thing, and I just think there are times in her filmography when she sort of embodies that a little bit. Yeah, the sort of obsession with the material, particularly, is something that I find can find a bit grating. It doesn't necessarily always mean I don't enjoy her films overall. I have got a lot of time for Sofia Coppola's films.
Yeah,
but as I don't know, I was always a bit guarded, and going in, I wasn't entirely sure what to expect. I'm really pleased to say that I fucking really liked it a lot.
Oh, really?
Okay. Really, really fantastic addition to her work. I think it's the best she's been in years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think there's a real maturity in that obsession with the materialism, because it ties in so well with the sort of themes of the film. In this idea that, initially Priscilla is sort of drenched in ethereal light, as if she's been chosen by some higher power. And of course, the higher power being Elvis.
Yeah,
which, to a teenage girl would be like being picked by a fucking god, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And sort of plucking her from obscurity and thrusting her into like a dream-like lifestyle that millions of young women and girls would give their right arm for, know. But what I really like about it is that same sort of bright ethereal cinematography, it can't conceal the cracks in Elvis's personality and the person he is.
Yeah.
And those cracks grow, and that sort of obsession with the material starts to be almost oppressive.
Right, yeah.
As Priscilla is like incarcerated in this sort of pastel opulence of his house,
Yeah.
And I just think it was I just think it's a sign of maturity in her work. I mean, obviously, she's a fantastic filmmaker, and I don't want to sort of rag on her too much for that element, but it feels like a real sort of thematic maturity. It feels very thematically mature to deploy it in this way, and I think it's the best use of it, I think, in her filmography.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad, because she is a real hit and miss filmmaker. I'm thinking Lost in Translation I quite liked.
Yeah.
I really like The Beguiled, although I know that's a remake, so arguably the source material is not down to her at all. But I liked that. I thought that was good.
Yeah.
Hated Marie Antoinette. I thought that was really bad.
A lot of people say that about it. I need to rewatch it. I can't remember
God.
what I thought about it, but
it's sickly. It's a sickly movie.
Very bright and colourful, isn't it?
Yeah, and this is exactly what you were what you were saying earlier about the heavy reliance on aesthetic, and that is massively guilty of it.
Okay.
But no,
I like Somewhere as well. That's quite a good film. One of the lesser known ones in her filmography. I quite like that. But no, I just think it's a real exploration of the dark side of celebrity, and particularly her life. I think a lot of people have criticised it because it doesn't feel like it says a lot about her sort of dreams and aspirations and the kind of character she is. Okay. But I would argue that the whole point of the film is that it's about that being taken away from her. Yeah. So, to sort of reinforce themes and, to reinforce those ideas about the nature of celebrity and, and the kind of person Elvis was. He was, a very broken man, medicated on booze and drugs, obsessed with his own mythology, controlling, plucking a young girl who was in 9th grade, and it's almost like, something to control. Yeah. And to control everything about her. And I think the more troubling aspects of his character and the darker elements of the film, which really grow as the film progresses, I think it's really important that the film is the way it is to do that. So, that's my rebuttal to that criticism.
There we go.
Not that criticism isn't legitimate, but really, really good movie, real surprise. I was also lucky to see it at the Watershed in 35mm.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know they had a projector.
No, neither did I. Oh, no, I think I have seen a film there in 35mm, but it's been a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
And basically, I think it's on the Movie Go app next week.
Okay.
But I thought, fuck it, 35mm, and that cinematography, the way it crackles and pops, there's that additional texture.
Yeah.
That, it just makes it all the more sort of. It just sucks you in.
Is
really good.
Was there cigarette burns at the top right hand corner still? I don't know if you might not have noticed it, because that's usually something I really miss for some reason.
Oh yeah. I don't know if I had
circles.
that. I was sort of. It's hard to sort of remember because you sort of get so used to the way the film.
Yeah.
The way it sort of pops that you don't really notice, but it definitely assisted the vibe of the movie. So if you can see it in that way, I would advise it. I can't imagine it would detract too much if you had to see it in digital, but it was a real added bonus.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I'm conflicted about what I want to choose next, and I'm going to just say both of them, but I will make a decision. The reason why this might be a bit cheeky to mention is because it is very much a 2022 film and kind of was involved in early 2023 award ceremonies, but I can't not mention it because we did a podcast about it in 2023.
Right, okay.
So, it's a toss-up between Killers of the Flower Moon and After Sun. I'm probably going to have to go After Sun because it just had such a profound impact on me, to the point where I'm sort of hesitant to watch it again because of how sort of emotionally devastating it was the first time. And and also another reason I want to mention it is because our episode that we recorded, which I'm really proud of, the sound wasn't great. So just kind of briefly relay over some of the reasons why I like it so much. Is it just does such a great job of encapsulating that the childlike, the going on holiday when you're little and the memories that you hold so dear to you in those moments. It does such a great job of reinvigorating that feeling for an hour and a half. And then to kind of couple that with the sort of a lot more kind of mature, devastating themes, and the way it handles that in a sort of in a visual way, very much handles the sort of morbid devastation in a sort of visual fashion, and it's not really in the dialogue. It's about when there is no dialogue, and it's about the acting with Paul Mescal. It's fantastic, and how he kind of approaches that's just wonderful. And the last shot is just floored me. And it took a while to digest, and I think even when we were talking about it, I couldn't articulate it as well, probably because it was episode 2. But yeah, I will pick that over Killers of the Flower Moon because I did love Killers of the Flower Moon, but I feel like that wins. Very different films. But there we go.
One of the great films of the last sort of couple of years, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
I think you're right, absolutely spot on with your sort of thoughts on it. I really like the sort of childlike view of parents. That's one of the real strengths for the film for me. Like, not quite having the life experience to understand why your parents behave a certain way, but being surprisingly well attuned to their emotions and feelings. And brilliant film.
Yeah, man.
And of course, it may have just lost out to it, but Killers of the Flower Moon is also, not in my top 8, funnily enough.
I don't know why I didn't make it. It just, it is the length is a big problem for me. I know we've talked about this many times in the past, but I do think actually, sort of in hindsight, it's a real bone I like to pick about that film, and I think it's justified because it is. I
think there's a growing contingent of people who just like a solid hour and a half to 2 hour movie, and I think anything more than that is a big ask. I think I don't mind as long as they can justify it, and I felt that by and large in the film they justified it. And the fact it's Scorsese at the point of the career that he's in, I think we said this in the episode when we talk about it, but that is sort of acceptable to me that he does that. That's my sort of Scorsese fanboy hat on there, but
it kept my attention, to be fair.
A very solid addition to his filmography and his commitment to the sort of the mythology of America. You know,
completely. Yeah.
but no, I didn't include it. Maybe I don't know. I don't know why I didn't include it actually. Do some soul searching about that, because I was quite positive about it in the episode.
Completely. Yeah, no, it's not fantastic. It just
I guess that's what happens when you choose 8 films.
Yeah.
Maybe in the sort of Instagram we'll do like a few notable omissions as well. We can chuck them in.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Look at those at your leisure. Okay, final one for me is The Boy and the Heron.
Okay, yeah, another one I've not watched.
Obviously, Studio Ghibli, Miyazaki. Not necessarily the strongest film in his filmography, but it's just so fucking lovely to have him back making movies. He's retired and returned quite a lot, and every time the world is a better place when he comes back. And this film is another great example of it. I think it's a culmination of all of the sort of themes that he's looked at in his previous films, sort of adolescent and national trauma, particularly in the context of post-war Japan.
Right. Okay.
The environmental element isn't necessarily as strong in the film, at least in the way that it is in his other films, but it's still there in a sort of in various guises. The way in which the film superimposes the sort of fantastical and mythological onto sort of the real world is another sort of key part of his work.
Yeah.
So in many ways it is quite similar to a lot of his other films, and I would perhaps argue that because it feels like such a sort of thematic and even narrative culmination of lots of other things and themes and ideas he's sort of explored in the films, that it doesn't quite achieve the similar sort of heights. But what I will say about it is that it's a lot more abstract narratively.
Okay, yeah.
And there's just something really sort of quite liberating about that. Like, you know, as a viewer, I mean, from his perspective, it must be more so, but I don't know, maybe. Get him on the blower, we'll find out.
Yeah. He just texted me. He definitely hasn't.
Yeah, imagine. I can't understand it. It just feels like a sort of more experimental film, I guess, in terms of his other work.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't always stick the landing. I think the opening's a bit long, and it leaves him with a lot of loose ends to tie up. But as a sort of visual exercise, it's stunning. One of his best looking films. The only thing I regret about watching it was that, and I have to talk about this because it was a traumatic experience.
Oh God!
I went to see it with my friend Eleanor, and we went to the Watershed to see it because we wanted to see the Japanese version, because that's the best way.
To watch subtitles. Yeah.
And it was dubbed.
No.
So we're like, no, we're not doing this.
It was
absolutely hammering it down with rain. Went all the way across Bristol to Avonmeads.
Really?
Only to realise that was also dubbed.
Oh, mate!
I don't get me wrong. There's some pretty awesome sort of, you know, Western actors in the sort of doing the voices, but it just doesn't feel the same. So I will definitely rewatch it at some point with, you know, subtitled, you know, with the original Japanese dialogue. All that aside, it was still a really enjoyable film, and again, it was lovely. I think maybe I'm more swept up about the sort of experience of watching it because it was so lovely to see a usually quite quiet cinema, as you know, packed.
That's
to the rafters.
That is really encouraging.
An enthusiasm for like a film that isn't Western, you know, from another culture.
Same with Godzilla -1 keeps getting re-released.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just lovely to hear.
It's lovely to see. And again, that would be my 8th pick as well, Godzilla.
Oh, really? I'm sorry. Yeah.
For the similar reasons, really. I don't want to talk about that too much. We literally just talked about it in the last episode. So if you want to hear our thoughts on that, go back one. Yeah, like you say, it's just wonderful to see an enthusiasm for these kinds of properties from the countries of their origin, because that's what I think the sharing of culture is all about, and I think it's really important that we keep striving for that and seeing lots of children in the audience as well, which is lovely.
That's nice.
So great.
So they'll get enveloped with the same feeling, you know, having presumably really lovely memories of watching a film of that ilk in the cinema. Good. Very pleased to hear that. It's brightened my day. Even more than just being here.
Well, you know.
Happy days, yeah. I mean, I don't really have anything else to mention. I will say that Saltburn is very good. I don't know if it would make it into a list or anything, I've got some words that I'd like to say in sort of more of a negative light about that film as well. As well as acknowledging films like The Holdovers, which I don't think either of us have seen. Apparently, that's amazing.
Coming out in England on the 19th of January.
There we go. That's why. So yeah, there are obviously blind spots that we have. It's impossible to see everything.
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah. I think this isn't our day job.
No,
it'd be
that'd be nice.
Feel free to try and make it our day job, everyone.
Yeah. Specifically, if anyone is here from Babybel, it'd be wicked to get sponsored by Babybel, because I'd be happily,
plug Babybels.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
To be fair, I would.
Yeah.
I don't think they're a particularly nefarious company, are they?
As far as I'm aware, no, they're pretty
Who owns
inoffensive.
Babybel?
I want to say it's a French company. I might be wrong.
It's not Kraft, is it? They seem to own loads of cheese companies.
Okay.
Anyway, let's go to the other end of the spectrum.
Oh.
Quickly rattle through some of the films that I've written in my notes belong in the bin. Bit harsh, maybe.
There's going to be some crossover here.
Yeah, I think so. So my first one's Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah, agreed. That's
utter shite.
Really
Even
bad.
for Marvel, it was just
hokey, weird, like trying to be funny at the beginning and in the end, and naff CG, and really disengaging. Not good. Yeah.
I've always felt that with someone like Paul Rudd, who's just naturally quite charismatic and quite sweet and funny, they've not really utilised him that well, I don't think.
No, I don't think so.
And it's particularly apparent here. Yeah, just rudderless sort of like stumblings. There's clearly a lack of coherency in the vision.
Yeah.
That sort of horrible, quippy sort of dialogue that Marvel... I mean, again, it's going to be your mileage is going to vary depending on your enthusiasm for that sort of the universe and the characters. But even by those standards, I think it's easily one of the worst written Marvel films.
Yeah, definitely.
My follow-on is Expendables 4. Expend 4 balls.
Expend 4 balls. Yeah.
Yeah. It's criminal that a film that expensive can look that bad.
Yeah, it really does. Shit.
Really poor. Again, I'm all for straight-to-DVD action film experiences. I'm not a snob when it comes to action films, but that is just shit.
Yeah, it wasn't entertaining.
Pervy, crass,
out of date.
Yeah, just, and it was a film that clearly strived to be something more, and I think that's where it leaves itself open for more criticism.
Yeah, definitely.
Cocaine Bear.
I've not seen Cocaine Bear. I've heard mixed. Some people quite enjoyed it, but I
didn't buy the B-movie aesthetic when it's obvious the film's got quite a bit of money behind it.
Yeah, right.
I'm all for those kind of celebration things, but it's not I'll get or jail free card for me. I didn't enjoy it. Babylon.
Okay, yeah.
Again, a film released in 2022. I'm interested to, but obviously because we live in England, this sort of hallowed green isle. Is that right? Hallowed?
England's pastures green, yeah. Hallowed's a good English sort of.
Yeah, I think so.
To describe a church in London or something.
Okay. Yeah.
Gothic architecture. Anyway.
I didn't really... I thought visually really impressive and some great performances and some really cool ideas. Just excitedly lobbed together in an incoherent sort of mess.
Yeah.
The last 15 minutes were shocking.
Yeah, really good. Yeah.
One of the, I think, arguably the worst 15 minutes in a film of the year.
Yeah, okay.
Supposed to inspire some sort of hope, but didn't.
No.
I don't know. I'd quite like to rewatch it because there were parts about it I quite liked, and I feel maybe I'm being a bit harsh saying go in the bin.
It's not going to make my list, but I agree with you that last montage was insufferably bad and doesn't. Yeah, that stayed with me as one of my least favourite cinematic sort of experiences. For sure.
Yeah. I just think that the film doesn't do a fantastic job of conveying that period very well, and I think it overdoes it. Which in a way I think is sort of contradictory. If you're so fascinated about the sort of the birth of that of the medium, which he's obviously is and has contributed his fair sum to,
yeah.
Why not be more truthful? Why why over egg it? I don't know. Seems a bit silly to me, but I'd like to rewatch it. Maybe my opinion would change.
Yeah.
Maybe, but in the meantime, new
Chazelle.
that's all I've written so far. Do you have any other ones?
I've got two more.
Go on.
I don't know if you've seen these two. Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire.
No, I haven't seen it. There's
really...
a part of me that quite likes Zack Snyder for some reason, so I was sort of holding out for the idea that I might just think... Sort of like with Batman vs Superman, like I know the film isn't good, but there's just some part of me that for some reason quite likes elements of it.
Oh, I really couldn't stand this one.
Okay, I've heard that from a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a shame because I really like a lot of his early films. Like
his early films is great.
300, Watchmen, and Dawn of the Dead, both fantastic films that I'll see any day of the week.
I'll see those. I wouldn't see 300. I think ITV4 killed it for me. But, and the sort of weird lad culture around it sort of puts me off it.
Agreed.
But the other two for sure.
Yeah. I won't say much about it other than that it's really derivative, is uninspired, too long. Apparently there's going to be a director's cut because that's his thing now, isn't it? Just dreadful, boring. I was in and out of it. It was that bad. It just didn't grip me at all. There we go. And the other one, which is a shame because I like the filmmaker, Meg to the Trench. I saw this on the same day that Hannah and her friend saw Barbie, so I was disappointed because I like Ben Wheatley, and I know it's just him, getting a paycheck. Fair enough.
Yeah,
but I was
do it.
Yeah, I was just expecting more from him, even though obviously I didn't mind the first one. I thought it was an alright shark movie, but it's just a shame to see him do a sequel this low. And then Hannah and her friends came out of Barbie really excited, and I just put another sort of... I was like, really? I've just been to see Meg to the Trench, so... Sorry, I'm not on the same level as you.
No,
just sat, and I was driving as well, so I just had like a fucking like ice cream float and just sat in the corner whilst they talked about Barbie. Anyway, there we go. There's my shit picks for the year.
Shit picks. That's good. Shit picks. Now, I'm sure there are more, but they're the ones that stood out for me the most anyway.
Yeah.
What about change of opinions then? Because in this sort of section of discussion before we close out with a sort of quick natter about films coming up this year that we want to cover and talk about, it just struck me that there were two films in particular that I've had a lot of discourse around them, and my feelings towards them, not necessarily because of the discourse, but I've sort of changed.
Okay.
I mean, obviously they've been influenced by it, particularly in the case of Barbie.
Yes.
And I just think it's not been enough to put them in the shit pick pile by any stretch. They're films that I both still like.
Yeah.
I just thought it was interesting to talk about that because, once you put your opinion out, particularly on like a podcast, it's pretty difficult to sort of... people will just think that's your opinion. And And opinions change. And I just sort of wondered how you felt about the idea regarding those two movies.
Yeah, I think for me, Oppenheimer, I haven't really changed my opinion on it.
Okay.
I'd be interested to hear why you have, though.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have discussed it a little bit already. And it was you that prompted my opinion to change slightly about Barbie as well. And I'd rather you kind of hear it coming from your mouth, really.
Okay.
But no, I agree. Opinions do change all the time. My opinion on Saltburn changed really drastically after seeing it based on what I read about it. Because I've really enjoyed it, and then I was reading about the filmmaker and where she's from and like what the film sort of means to her, and I was like, and it kind of soured it ever so slightly.
Okay.
Other examples of my opinion changing of films is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the 2011 remake. I fucking love that film now, and I'd watched it twice before and wasn't so keen on it for some reason. I think I already discussed this in the Killer episode, but yeah.
It happens.
Right. Opinions do change.
Yeah.
So for Barbie, then, should we start with Barbie?
Yeah, I just think we sort of covered this quite a lot in the episode that we did about it, but it's just become a little bit more, I think, harder for me to swallow the idea of the film's sort of thematic intent on the basis that, I don't know, I just sort of have questions around the earnestness of the message.
Yeah.
I have no issue with the message. I'm not coming at it from like a Ben Shapiro burning Barbies outside his front garden sort of angle.
Yeah.
You're getting the fucking shit pics.
Yeah.
It's not made a film, but it's more just, I think a lot of the discourse around it that sort of started to change my opinion was just the idea that it was difficult to imagine this not being sort of focus grouped a lot. And when I heard the word focus group, there's something about the word focus group that just kills my enthusiasm for stuff.
Yeah.
And I just think I think that quite a lot. And you see interviews with obviously Greta Gerwig and the cast who are obviously very passionate about the themes of the film. And I don't think it's fair to sort of question that.
Yeah.
But I just think the whole reason for the film's existence is to sort of profiteer off that. And I think there is something inherently troubling about that, given that is the money from that really going to sort of change the world in a positive way, or is it just going to go to the same people that hold all the power? And this is starting to sound a bit conspiratorial, but
no.
The film industry, it's mostly ran by men, right?
Men, rich, powerful men
who have shown in the process of this period, certainly over this year, they've shown their true colours. And I just think I'm not sure that we should be levelling too much praise on the film on that basis. Although I am aware that is really harsh on the basis that again there are a lot of people attached to that film, Greta Gerwig included, who are very passionate about it and believe wholeheartedly in what they're trying to do. And I just think that opens up an interesting contradiction that is perhaps should be leveled more broadly at the industry as a whole. And I guess one of the conundrums any filmmaker faces about wanting to make something that's critical about an aspect of society. I mean, do they not do it to stay true to their principles? And never make anything, or do they accept that some not very nice people are going to get rich off something, but as long as enough people see it, and hopefully that will inspire some kind of change? I don't know. I mean, we've talked about this a lot as well, like temporary moral realignments. We're guilty of it, and we all are. We watch a TV show or a film that strikes a chord with us, and it doesn't leave us, and we think, I'm going to do something about this. This
fire training as well. Fucking hell, I better be more cautious about fire than next week. Back to the old habits.
Exactly. Eating toast in the bath with the toaster. I don't know. I just think there's always going to be that contradiction when you're working within the parameters of this system. And it's always going to be something the detractors are going to level at you. And I think it's just really complicated, and but that complexity is something that has marred my enthusiasm for those messages in the film somewhat.
I think the thing that worries me the most is obviously I'm quite looking forward to hopefully a positive change based on the outcome of the strikes and based on the fact that Marvel is on the potentially kind of going down the Swanee a little bit. And the flip side to that is obviously Barbie's the highest grossing film of 2023 by quite a significant margin. What is that going to mean for other films that come out? Is there going to be like a Ken standalone film? Is there going to be other toys that get kind of sort of sloppy, hastily put together adaptations that come out? And is that going to mar the landscape, the same as or even more than what the superhero genre has been doing already? That worries me as well, slightly separately to your own point, which is like equally valid, and I do agree with you. I think there's definitely there's a slight hypocrisy with Barbie and its message versus the way it was marketed, and same with Saltburn as well. The reason I have a bit some issues with Saltburn is it's directed by Emerald Fennell, who's privately educated. And I learned about this afterwards. I was like, oh, okay, so I might have misread a lot of these themes. There's a lot of he's sort of an examination of the tiers of privilege, right? And obviously it's all right to express a sort of reverence for your past experiences, and in this case it's at her higher education at Oxford University, right? But then when your film's attempting to satirise the ridiculousness of the hyper-wealthy lifestyle, perhaps take on a writing partner with a more sort of objective view of wealth. And this is something she didn't do, and as a result, the film is slightly sort of disconnected and muddled. And I enjoyed loads of aspects of it. I still thought it was really funny and really kind of vibrant. But it just left a bad taste ultimately for that reason. And I think as well intentioned as Barbie is, and as well as intentioned as Emerald Fennell was making this film, there's just a slight, I don't know, what kind of cognitive dissonance that's happening. That's a shame because
I think every film is going to get this. If you're critical about something, to do with the system that we live in, then your film, everyone's going to be, all the really smart people are going to, really just quickly point out that you're making a film within the same system you're criticising.
Yeah.
Again, we've already sort of covered that. But however, I do think if you're pushing a certain message or agenda, that does leave you open to more criticism.
Yeah,
and
completely.
I think in the sort of binary nature and way culture is, a lot of people are presenting culture, or maybe the more partisan way that culture is being presented. I think there is a fairly significant pool of people who criticise the film for that reason. But they're getting drowned out by the people that are either pro-feminine or the sort of Meninist movement championed by people like Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, exactly.
And and that means that there can't be any sort of proper reflective discussions about it because those people, putting Barbies in bins are sort of like taking all of the critical element. And I'm all,
it's a knee-jerky.
Which I just have no fucking time for whatsoever.
No.
I think there is some validity to the criticisms on the basis of what we've talked about.
Definitely.
As harsh as that makes me sound.
I think it's interesting that sort of occurred since that film came out, and maybe it's something to do with the fact that at the time it was like a huge deal and it was everywhere and there was a lot of sparkle and joy about it, and so it might have maybe dampen down people's ability to be critical, at least initially. It'd be interesting to see how the film fares over time on that basis. So, yeah.
Quickly, Oppenheimer.
Yeah, okay. What's your beef? I'm joking.
Firstly, it tends to happen to be with Nolan films by and large.
Yeah, okay.
They always sort of dampen because, again, as we said in the Oppenheimer episode, he does occupy this awkward space between being like a singular auteur, the great saviour of blockbuster cinema, or, as I've said a lot, pseudo intellectual shit flinger. And that's a really, they're very strong contrasting opinions. I think that the fact that he occupies that awkward space makes it really difficult to know exactly where he is.
Yeah.
But I think certain films, for me, either go more one way or the other.
Okay, yeah.
I think with this film, I still think it's one of his better films.
Yeah.
But I think it could have been a little bit more focused on the impact of what he'd done.
Okay, yeah.
I think that's something that I think there is some credibility to that. I don't know. I think it became more apparent to me after watching like Godzilla. And thinking about that, and obviously the film isn't like, it doesn't sort of ladle praise on him necessarily, but I think a bit more of a focus on that area would have done the film some good.
Yeah, I think so. There was that one sequence where he was kind of imagining it happening.
Yeah, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was good.
Cool. I say cool. I never say cool unless there's a microphone in front of my fucking face.
Pretty damn cool.
Pretty damn
people
cool.
Getting burnt alive.
Yeah. It didn't in that context. It was like a fucking freak.
No. I think, you're right though. I think it would have been narratively interesting as well. Not narratively good, because it's never nice to see atrocities happen, but paint a picture as to the ramifications of his invention a little bit more, other than just seeing a globe aflame at the end, which, as we all know, didn't happen. I know it's a metaphor for like things to come and stuff like that, and there's a whole thing about the water droplets and the pond and stuff, but no, I agree. It would have been an interesting addition to the film,
considering especially considering so much of the film is like there's little sort of like visual moments.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind them at the start, but as I reflect on it, maybe chop some of that away and maybe focus a bit on the impact.
Yeah.
I don't know, but just enough to sort of knock the film down a little bit in my estimation. So.
Fair play. Yeah.
Right then, 2024 on the horizon.
Oh yeah.
Are there any films that you're excited about?
I mean, I'm interested, if slightly terrified, about Gladiator 2, obviously.
Okay. Yeah.
And obviously, as you mentioned, I think before we started recording, Mad Max Furiosa. Yeah. Looks to be interesting. George Miller's an interesting filmmaker. I think the trailer was very CG heavy, which worried a lot of people. A lot of the visual effects weren't finished.
No.
So I'm looking forward to that surprising people. I really hope it does anyway.
Yeah, because Fury Road was such a hit.
Yeah.
And it was largely deserved. Brilliant film. Real spectacle. Yeah, for me, Maxine.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
I think the final film in the trilogy of X and Pearl.
Yeah, X is great. I haven't seen Pearl, but I'd like to.
I've seen both. I liked Pearl, but X for me is one of the best modern horror films I've seen in a very, very long time.
Yeah.
I think the way I think we spoke about this, but in the context of Scream, but I think the slasher genre, I think the fact that it always feels this sort of pressure to sort of critique itself is something that, it's Wes Craven's shadow hangs high over that genre. And that's not a bad thing, because Scream's great. Yeah. Certainly the first few. And Scream 5 as well, which I really like.
Oh, yeah, you do, don't you? Yeah.
But I just think, the way that the film just plays with the sort of grisly innards of the genre and does it really, really well, and sets it against the backdrop of this sort of sexually liberated youth and the sort of fusty old, and really throws some curveballs and surprises around that. I think it's really, really great. So I'm really looking forward to Maxine.
Perfect.
The style looks great from the stills I've seen anyway.
Oh.
And Robert Eggers' Nosferatu.
Oh man, that looks great. Yeah, I mean,
big shoes to fill.
Yeah. I think he can do it though. I think he can handle it.
I think there's anyone that can.
Yeah. Those him and David Lowery are just two A24 boys who I love when their work comes out. And looking forward to that very much.
Yeah, I think so too. Oh. Plenty more to look forward to, but for the sake of brevity, I think we should probably stop it there.
Yeah.
Outro.
Questing the cinematic void.
There it is then.
Yeah, there we have it.
Hey, the first one of 2024.
I know, I did it.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was really good to sort of revisit last year's wide berth of films that we've both seen. Seen quite a lot. I've quite pleased myself. So, I mean, the year before last, I barely went to the cinema at all, and it's really good to go back a little bit more for the purposes of this podcastio. So, podcastio.
So next week, Ben, shoot.
Yeah, so A Society of the Snow. It was a film that caught my eye a couple of days ago. I quite like survival films, quite into that. So, and I also like the director J.A. Bayona. I like some of his work.
Fallen Kingdom.
Oh yes, an absolute
Jurassic World,
chef's kiss masterpiece, as we all know. So but
that's a bit harsh.
No. You're right. It is he's a director for hire in some respects, but he's gone back to his sort of native Spanish language for this. I think they're actually from Uruguay, the main characters, but. It's I wouldn't say it's a remake, but it's a retelling of the story of the rugby team that crash landed in the Andes, and the film Alive was made about them.
Right, okay.
Back in 1993 by Frank Marshall, and it's just a retelling of that.
Okay.
So that's it's not a cinematic release. It's a Netflix, which is a shame, but we will be going back to the cinema to go and see some gems very soon. Yeah.
There's a lot of films coming, that most of fucking world's already seen. For some reason. We sort of mentioned this a lot with a degree of frustration this episode, but a lot of films. So Poor Things.
And the
Holdovers, both of which are coming out in the next couple of weeks. So I think that's sort of our trajectory sorted for January.
Pretty much,
for the majority of it, anyhow. So it'd be good. I know very little about the film or indeed the subject matter. I'm interested to see how it goes, and of course that'll lend itself to a broader discussion about survival films, which is something you really dig. So
I do like struggle for survival. I think there's some interesting themes that can kind of get
absolutely
up.
So I really like The Grey.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why.
We could spend an hour and 20 minutes talking about The Grey if you want. And then just sort of briefly slotted Society in the Snow at the end.
By the way.
Yeah. Nice.
Well, in the meantime,
yes.
Thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you very much.
And we will be with you in the next one.
Yeah, see you then.
Lots of love. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.